news out of Riverside County that we've been following. The end of a police pursuit involving Riverside County Sheriff's deputies. You see the SWAT vehicle out there. Live pictures from Skyfox where this all came to a crashing end. And yes, there is that vehicle up against the concrete barrier on the other side of the road. This is Belgrave Avenue in Jurupa. They used some sort of a grappler device. You'll see it. Snagged the back of this Cadillac CTS. Pursuit suspect inside, causes it to lose control, goes across the lanes on the other side. Fortunately, there was not oncoming traffic. Crashes there into ultimately a home that is on Antigua Drive. So no movement thus far from inside the Cadillac. You have to wonder if that suspect inside is conscious. It was given the force of that collision there. So we'll keep a watch on that as that situation continues to unfold. And no word yet on the why police were pursuing this suspect in the first place.
Back to our breaking news. There has been some movement here on the ground in Jurupa Valley. First off, you can see deputies right there with a stick there, the deputy that's on the top there of that Bearcat, and he's bashed in that back window already. Before that, we saw him fire 2 projectiles into the back of that car. What they were, not quite sure, but obviously this gives them a lot more visibility. Now, that all came on the top of this, which we showed you at the top of our newscast. A drone flown right up against that back windshield there to get a close look. It was kind of shattered, so tough to see, but it literally landed on the glass. Maybe it was the front windshield. Landed on the glass to take a look inside. We don't know the status of this driver after a pursuit, but we do know that it appears the officer's posture is a lot different. You don't see their weapons drawn at that vehicle. Also, added information here on this pursuit. What was the want here? Failure to yield. Failure to yield. Something that simple. The pursuit went on. The driver stopped for a minute. Deputies had their doors open. They were out of the vehicles. The driver took off. They tried to deploy an interesting new tool called the grappler, and it didn't work the way it's supposed to do. It's supposed to grab the back of the car, bring the pursuit to an end. Well, the car spun across the lanes. There you go. Watch the grappler there. We've done a story on the launch of this grappler. Here you go. You see that deputy try to pull up and grab the vehicle to bring it to an end. It spins the car there across all those lanes into that home there where somebody was in the yard with the dog. They went running and into that wall there. We've not seen any movement at all from the driver or perhaps anybody else in that vehicle. You had that Bearcat move in pretty quickly to block the back of the car. Then another one moved in to block the side of the car and block the driver's side there. Again, the posture of the deputies, well, you see them with their weapons there. So it seems to me that there's not a great concern like we saw earlier with a lot more unknown. It seems like they have perhaps a better feel of the situation given that drone that was flown in, given that they've bashed in the back of that window, the window there of the vehicle. You have to wonder if the driver is even alive or in some fashion incapacitated, but there's no movement there. Obviously, safety first for law enforcement. They're not going to move in unless they feel it's safe. Don't know if there's been any communication whatsoever. It doesn't seem to be that they're communicating with somebody in the car verbally. You don't see them look like they're yelling commands right now from the appearance at this hour. Remember, it started at 3:20. We launched our top of our newscast at 5 o'clock with this scene here, just a complete standoff. Well, there you have that deputy now. They do have weapons drawn there. So we're looking at both of them there. Now, sometimes they will shoot in smoke grenade type things that will smoke out the driver. Obviously, they've left that passenger side door open for somebody to exit the vehicle. But again, both of them have the weapons for projectiles, it appears, drawn at that vehicle with that windshield there in the back bashed out with one of their tools, much more access. The drone, it's still there. If we get a better shot of the front windshield, you can see the drone sitting there. So that makes me think that maybe there is some movement with the driver, that they're watching the driver's actions. If they're going to shoot something else into the vehicle, they can see the driver reacting. But if you're thinking the driver is capable of getting out of the vehicle, then that's something they're going to watch for. A lot of deputies there on the scene. A reminder, this was a failure to yield in Jurupa Valley. And right now, a lengthy standoff with a lot of manpower, a lot of equipment, a lot of tax dollar expense there. And again, this appears to be a home that wall crashed into. And I'm thinking when it happened, thank God there was nobody walking down the street, or that no pedestrian was hit, or no other motorist, because that car crossed the other lanes in the opposite direction. Crossing, cars would be oncoming to the car that crashed into the wall. And luckily there was no car at that time, because just moments before there were vehicles passing by. So as we're watching here, it looks like deputies are preparing to take some other kind of action here to bring this to a close. They've got a lot of daylight still, so time is still on their side. Light is going to be, visibility is going to be very good for probably at least 2 hours, give or take. Not sure when sundown is anymore right now, but it's well after 5. So again, that's another tool right there that they were using to bust the glass there, which gives them greater visibility. Okay, they're getting out the mask there for their perhaps own protection if they're going to shoot some kind of projectile that would be an irritant to the eyes, to the nose, a pepper spray of some sort. An irritant that would, if you're trapped in that vehicle or you're sitting in that vehicle, you would want to get out of that vehicle right away because of that irritant. So it seems to me, if that's what's going to happen, then they are pretty sure that person is capable of exiting the vehicle, as in they've seen with that drone, which is sitting on the windshield still, they've seen with that drone that person is moving and not indicating, hey, I can't move, hey, I can't walk, hey, I'm trapped. So you wonder if there's some kind of communication there that signifies to the officers that this person, if they want to get out of the car, they can. What's it going to take? In this day and age, you don't have to send in a dog threatening the dog's life. You can use things like that tool there to bash out windows, to get more visibility, to send in any kind of pepper spray or chemical. I'm not sure what they use there, Riverside County, so I don't want to say specifically, but it looks like they're going to insert something perhaps into the vehicle, or I don't know if that's more to break glass. We'll see. We'll see. Let's watch the actions here. But look at the deputy there. He's got that mask on to protect himself from any kind of residual or any kind of chemical irritant that would blow their way or come back onto them. So they're taking their own precautions there. Looks like this deputy either is going to take the action there with the irritant, or is going to be in the wind. Wait, okay, is there movement there? Something? Oh, wow. Okay, there's movement there in the car. So that person is grabbing something from the back of the car. Not sure what it is they're grabbing. Not sure if they're trying to indicate they'll make some move. They're gonna cooperate in any fashion. But that was the first movement I've seen in this entire standoff where you saw some movement from inside the vehicle. Now, it's not easy to reach back. It's a fairly decent sized car. My colleague informs me it's a Cadillac CT5. So to reach back and be able to pull something from the back there indicates that person has a little bit of mobility. Again, we are guessing that there's one person in the car, have not heard. Obviously, the pursuit earlier today, there were 2 people in the car. In that pursuit, one person died, another arrested, and that was a standoff and shootout with police there, LAPD. So you're here now in Riverside County, and you're watching really technology at play here with those Bearcats and the ability to not have an officer have to go in and approach that vehicle. Again, we've been dealing with this pursuit here in Jurupa Valley for 2 hours now. Not the standoff necessarily for 2 hours, but this all began 3:20 p.m. here in Southern California. We do know that lots of people watch us from around the country and elsewhere. Yes, another pursuit ending here in Southern California. The box shot you see there is our crew on the ground. Okay, some movement there, right there. Some movement there. That deputy there is maybe clearing. Okay, yeah, some kind of irritant there. Gas of some sort, perhaps. Trying to smoke out that driver. Okay, but look how it blows back out of the vehicle. If you are that deputy up there with that stick, it can go right at you. You see him holding that gas mask against his face to protect from the irritant. But you can see how irritating that would be if it's coming at you. It is blowing back towards the deputy, so you have to wonder how much is going inside the car and for how long that person with no gas mask can withstand this. All right, Tim Lynn, our police specialist, bring us up to date here with this immediate scene right here with what that deputy has inserted into that vehicle and how it works.
It's a gas canister that is on the end of that pole that emits the tear gas, which is basically a very fine powder. You can see it's completely filled the interior of that car. If you look at the windshield, it's completely white. So it is getting a good saturation inside that car. So if the driver decides to stick with it, he's going to have to overcome that, as well as he's blocked from the left to get out. So he's going to have to come out that right-hand door. So they've kind of, it looks like he might be or just moving stuff out of the way. It's just a matter of now giving him the incentive to get out, because staying in there with that much gas is very difficult. I have seen in the past where they've used 2 to 3 different canisters into the car to get somebody out, and they stick with it. And I don't know how they do it, because I've been through the gas training where they put you in a building and set one of those off, and the first thing you want to do is get out. So how a person can be able to handle that is beyond me, but they do. Suspects have a strong will at times not to give up, and when they do things like this. But the reason they put it on the end of a pole like that is to control it so it doesn't get inside and cause a problem once it gets in on the interior. So they can hold it there, let it disperse, not come out, put another canister in if needed, and put in a second canister if this person doesn't give up. For some reason, they're not advancing on this car with shields and things of that sort. I have not heard what the actual initial want was on this vehicle, but obviously with the SWAT being called out and the speed at which the SWAT team is working here, very, very slowly, very methodically, bringing in equipment, getting in position, making sure everything is in their advantage coming up on this vehicle. So they must have some information that really gives them pause to be able to approach this car, because they're not exposing themselves whatsoever to the person inside this car.
So, Tim, as we're looking at this here, we saw that the tear gas was blowing back, even back on towards the deputy who inserted it into the vehicle. But you're pretty convinced that enough would go into the vehicle that would cause a problem for the average person?
Oh, yes. I mean, if you looked at it there, as I explained it, it showed the windshield was completely whited out. That's that white powder. It's not actually a gas. It's a microfine powder that is dispersed by smoke. And the smoke is in the canister. It burns. That smoke then carries that microfine powder out, and that's what the irritant is carried by. And when you saw the front windshield of that car, you saw it turn completely white. That indicates to me they're getting good saturation in there. So now what they'll do, it looks like, is they're going to wait and see if the driver now wants to give up, because the powder or the irritant isn't gone. Just because the smoke is gone, that car is completely filled with that microfine powder. So anything in there is now contaminated. The hands, the face, the hair, the clothing, anytime he moves or that driver moves, going to get another dose. So it doesn't go away just because the smoke isn't visible. So it's just they're trying to see what will happen now once they put in that first canister. And as you were talking, I'm sure negotiations are going on with the PA system or verbally from the officer hanging out of the hatch on the top of the armored vehicle. So, you know, they have to take their time, and they've decided to run this in a very methodical way versus being more aggressive getting up on the car. So right now it's just a matter of time to see what this suspect wants to do.
Tim, it really is a wild scene in that the want that we have was failure to yield. Now, you're right. Law enforcement may have a lot more information than we have about this suspect, any past histories as well, or more on the nature of that failure to yield. But what an ending if that's the situation. So you have this driver who's crashed into the wall, perhaps injured. But I'm wondering, do deputies with the drone that's sitting on that driver's side windshield, do they have enough information to feel this person is mobile enough to get out of the passenger side?
Yeah, that's what they have. I can't predict what they can see and what they're watching. And the drone has a fully capable camera on it that could be pan, tilt, zoomed in, pulled out, even infrared for some of them, to where they can look at the inside of that car. But the infrared would be pretty tough looking through the windshield because that blocks the heat. But with the camera, they can look in, check things out, and they could probably tell the condition of that driver, that he's not pinned by the steering wheel. The crash was significant to the damage to the front of that car and pushed that hood all the way back. But luckily, I'm going to say luckily, it hit the cinder block wall, which they give up pretty easily when you hit them. They do a lot of damage, but they're not shoving a lot of mechanics back into the car. The engine isn't, there's not enough resistance there to push that engine that far back, and it does look spectacular, and the hood crumples and everything. It's what it's designed to do. But that passenger compartment usually is pretty well protected at that point. So, but you have the impact, you have the speed that he hit, and watching the video over and over and over again, watching how it just made that veering left turn and right into the wall. Not really sure what was going on there. Possibly that grapple got a hold of that left rear wheel and locked it up, but strap did not grab onto. You watch the video here as he comes up. He attempts one try, backs off, and then as it comes up to it on the second try, it looks like what happens here is a little contact. You see the smoke come off that left rear tire. Possibly a part of that grappling net got a hold of that left rear tire, locked it up, because you see a skid mark. If you watch here, you'll see a skid mark come off of it. And as normally these tires on these new cars, or brakes on these new cars, will not lock up because of the ABS. So as it comes in, you see the smoke, you see a little bit of a skid mark, and then boom, right on into the fence. So they're going to have to check into that to see exactly how and what happened with the grappling system. I am not really familiar with them. Their new technology coming into play with law enforcement trying to do their best to stop these pursuits in the least damaging way, to where that grappling is designed to go in and wrap around the wheels, and then as the unit backs off, a strap comes out and it basically tethers the car to the front of the police car, and then the police car just slows down and springs the car to a stop. But in this case, that didn't work, and unknown what happened there would cause that left rear tire to skid a little bit, but definitely took it off in a left-hand arc into that fence. But that'll be worked out in the investigation after this is completed. But right now, we have SWAT officers who have been called to the scene, and they're going to do their thing. I'll tell you one thing about working with SWAT: they are not fast at anything. Everything they do is at a snail's pace. As long as there's not an active shooter, if there's nothing active going on with victims involved, they're going to take their time and make sure they do it slowly and methodically to be able to get this person out, because there's no rush. The time is on their side. The car's not going anywhere. Suspect's not going to go anywhere. So it's just a matter of this suspect giving up and getting out of the car to end this thing.
Well, it is quite the visual there. We appreciate what insight you do have on the grappler there, because I remember we did a story when it was first discussed years ago, and people were thinking about how can we have these pursuits end where there is nobody getting hurt. There's so many pursuits that you're like, what can we do? We did a story not too long ago showing them in action, and then now we have this here. Let's just talk about the video here where they first use some of their other tools earlier to try to break that window to then insert that tear gas into the vehicle. So talk about just the tools that they have without putting their body in danger.
Right. They'll use all kinds. The most inventive people at the police department are the SWAT officers, because there's officers that are in the SWAT teams that come up with all kinds of things, and they're all across the country coming up with a new idea on how to deliver. I mean, back in my day, you would use a pike pole from the fire department, and you'd duct tape a canister on it. Looks like we got movement here in the car. You saw something there.
Yeah,
see?
that's video from earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, video from earlier. That was the first movement, Tim, that we saw at all. First at all.
Okay, so I see the live up in the left-hand corner.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously that drone operator has seen this person moving around. So anyway, they back in my day, you'd just duct tape a canister on the edge of end of a pipe pole and jam it through the window. Now they've come up with these fancy extending poles with all the controls on it, to where they can put it in the car where they need to put it in. And then other things that they come up with to be able to protect the SWAT officer from having to expose himself getting up to this car. So, every day is an evolution of technology, and somebody will try something new that works. Sometimes you'll try something that doesn't work. And I said the most inventive person is that SWAT sergeant or SWAT officer that's his main job, is to figure out how they can make it easier and safer for the officer. And they'll come up with some pretty amazing things. So I always have a lot of admiration for the SWAT teams and special enforcement bureaus that are out there that put all this stuff together, and the way they operate. Like I said, they do not go fast. Everything is slow and methodical. And what that does is protects the suspect and also protects the people around them, to where you don't have a lot of policemen with a lot of guns downrange, and then one round goes off, then you have a bunch of sympathetic fire go off and bullets going everywhere. Those days are pretty much over. And when the SWAT team shows up, they take over the scene. Uniformed officers pull back to the outer perimeter, and they let the officers do their thing now. So as you see, the tape here is they're pushing glass out of the way, now pushing that in, and then he just pulls a ring on the end of that hook, into that extension pole, which now puts it into the car. And as you said, Christine, it kind of looked like it was getting out, but once this shot pulls out a little bit, see the windshield fill up. So that's telling me the whole car is filling up with that smoke or that powder, and a good saturation is being affected here. So, this pretty tough guy in there put up with that much gas and that much irritant in there to be able to stay for as long as he has afterwards. So I would not hesitate to think that another one or two canisters are going to go in, trying to convince this person to get out of the car, because there's some reason they don't want to approach that car and bust the window out and open the door and pull him out, because they probably have information that he's either armed or there's something with the car that they don't want to put officers in harm's way.
Tim, let me welcome our viewers at 5:30 here on Fox 11 News here in Los Angeles, as we are watching still the end of a pursuit in Jurupa Valley, Riverside County. You're looking at that big screen, which is video from earlier when they were able to bust open that back window, use that pole there to put in some tear gas, and still no movement from that driver. Now, I say no movement in that the driver has not come out of the vehicle. You see the deputy there with his own gas mask on for his protection there. We did see some movement shortly before that where the driver was grabbing something in that back area. Now, this pursuit started at 3:20 p.m. We've been covering it here on Fox 11 for over 2 hours now, and it was quite the wild ending with the use of that grappler and the car spinning off into a wall where there was a person in the yard and a dog. They went running, but the driver has not exited that vehicle. So, Tim Lynn, as we bring you back in, we remind our viewers that they are watching the live shot on the top screen, which is now the full screen. That is our ground crew, our photographer, Joab Perez, right there on the ground, bringing us that live shot right there. We are hearing that they put the pole back into the car. I don't know if they're indicating to the driver, hey, another round is coming, because you mentioned, Tim, that they'll do more than one round of the tear gas. But what does that tell you about a suspect who's apparently not showing any sign of exiting the vehicle after round number 1 of tear gas? What is that? Any insight?
It's not your normal everyday 8 to 5 person who goes to work, comes home, eats dinner, then heads off to work the next day. It's somebody who is really determined to hold in there because, like I explained earlier, having gone through tear gas training, it is not a fun experience to be exposed to that. And for this person to be able to sit in there and get the first dose come in and load up the car. And as I explained, it doesn't go away just because the smoke disappears. There's still that powder in there. So he's continually being dosed. Every time he moves around, or he or she moves around inside that car, is getting dosed. And for somebody to be able to hold in on that, it kind of tells you that, they're a pretty tough person, or either they have some type of narcotic or a drug on board that's deadening their senses. But there are people in this world who are not susceptible to tear gas or OC spray or pepper spray. It's just something about their eyes, their senses, their nose that are not affected. So, this could be the 1 out of a million persons that, is not affected by tear gas. And, we've gone into tasers. I mean, there's folks out there who can get hit by a taser and not react to it. And so every piece of equipment that a police officer has, somebody somewhere is going to defeat it or not be affected by it. And so you always have to keep that in mind when you're deploying a less lethal option here. But what they've done now is they've put that gas in, they'll wait, they'll negotiate, they'll try to get this person to crawl out of the car. Obviously, the person is moving around in the interior of the car because we saw that movement in the back window on the deck. So a drone on the windshield is probably watching this person move around in there. So that intelligence is coming back to these officers on scene. So they're working with everything they're gathering at the scene. I'm sure back at the stations, they're trying to gather information on this person in this car. And as I spoke about the pursuit the other night that was ended up out in Barstow, it was just a failure to yield there too. But you don't know what's in the car. You don't know why they're failing to yield. You don't know why they're not pulling over and stopping. What have they done? Are they, the one the other night was reported attempt murder suspect, but you're not really sure what's in the car or what the motive is of that person, why they're not stopping. And, this car was going at a pretty good rate of speed, but not in a crazy way, but just trying to get away. And what caused the crash, it was the attempted use of that grappler, causing that left rear wheel look like to lock up a little bit. But right now, everything is slowed down and just moving through and trying to get this person to give up safely.
Tim?
And it's all up to them.
Yeah. I want to bring you up to speed here on this video from earlier around 3:30 this afternoon. This is more when we picked up this pursuit in Jurupa Valley. Look at all of those deputies there out of their vehicles for a standoff at a stop sign. This is where the driver initially stopped, could have exited the vehicle right there, could have brought this to an end. We were all waiting, watching as the deputies were all out of their vehicles to see what happened. And, the driver just eventually would take off. We'll keep a watch on this video right now to see how this played out this afternoon. So Tim, as you're looking at all the deputies, a lot of them, they're ready for this driver to exit the vehicle. Again, we're saying failure to yield, but that's a lot of law enforcement right there.
Yeah. Any pursuit will attract a lot of officers, and especially what I see right there, there must have been more to this than a failure to yield. This is a very large response by these officers. You have the long guns out, as well as another armored officers back behind the area, and he stopped at this point. And now was trying to make the person's going through this thing in his mind, trying to figure out, do I give up? Do I not give up? Delaying the inevitable and not slowly moving away. And now it's just slowly moving away, trying not to draw fire from anybody, or just, see what I can do. And, before just jamming the gas on and going. But right now, it looks more like a delaying technique that we've watched people do over and over again, where they stop multiple times during pursuit, taunt the officers, do whatever, and then take off. Well, this one here took off from that stop, and what happened prior to that, we don't know. We don't know how long it went.
Let's watch the grappler move in there. Yeah, Tim, let's watch the grappler move in. Again, as we talked about, newer technology. They make one attempt right there, doesn't grab onto the car like it's supposed to. They're going to make another attempt, and it should just slowly bring that car to an end, but as you mentioned, spins off into that home right there with that crash. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, that netting that's on the front of that police unit, it's straps that are built up into a net, and they're supposed to grab or get onto the rear wheel, one side or the other, get on the rear wheel, wrap around that rear wheel, and lock it up. And at the same time, as the unit backs away, it's supposed to send out, it stay tethered to the police unit as it pulls away, so where the police unit can slow down and basically pull on the leash and slow the car down so it doesn't do something like this. But here's an indication how quickly that SWAT unit got there. That gives me the idea that this thing has gone on way before media showed up, and was already in progress to get those folks activated and on scene that quickly. So they were already dispatched en route and probably on scene at the initial stop that we watched earlier, because they were there very quickly. Because it's not like the movies where they drive around in that truck trying to wait for something to happen. They deploy after being called out. So there's more to this right now, and just by the action of these officers right now tells me that this suspect is probably pretty violent.
All right, Tim Lynn, our police specialist, stand by. We're going to step away to bring people some other news today and come back to this if there are more developments. We thank you for your expertise. We take you back now to Jurupa Valley, to that standoff. There has been some movement. Hard to see with that shot here, but we do have our photographer, Joab Perez, who's on the camera giving us this visual. Joab, I'm going to just have a conversation with you and ask what you're seeing there when we have him. Okay, they're moving in. They're moving in right there. Deputies there with their shields. Apparently, they're going to bring this standoff to an end if they can. They're possibly approaching the vehicle. I'm not quite sure how close they are per my perspective right here, but they have their shields. This is the first movement we've seen. They're punching a hole there. Oh, the door's open. Door's open. No, I'm sorry. They're punching a hole in the window. Okay, so the airbag deployed. They're punching a hole in that, apparently, clearing the space. Obviously, they feel safe enough to move into that vehicle. Joab, you're on the camera there. What are you seeing?
Yes, we're seeing them appearing to open this window here. You can see there's a unit in front of our shot here. You can see that the door's open, so it's kind of blocking the view, but it appears that they are moving in, trying to break the door open, perhaps the window, or open this door and get this suspect out. We've been here for at least around 30 minutes, and we've seen flashbangs. We saw that tool that was used to put in gas, and then again, they've been very patient about doing this and trying to get this suspect out as safely as possible.
Well, Joe, we appreciate you being on the microphone. Not normally your situation. You're on the camera there for us, but arriving there on the scene to bring us this story as it's breaking here in Riverside County. So apparently, is it the back door that's open? Can you see from your perspective if the back doors, they're going toward the front door? Oh, okay.
Yes, now it looks like they're going towards, that would be the passenger door, I believe, from where I'm at. So it appears that they're trying to get this individual out. It appears that he's quite, we don't really know his situation, if he's trapped in there. I think I've been hearing you guys say that he has looked to grab something from the back at one point, and you've seen some movement, but we're not fully aware of his mobility or her mobility at this time. So it seems that they're trying to, and you can see that they're quite, they don't look too concerned about, they seem to be taking their time here to try to find a way to open it, but they don't seem to be guns drawn.
Right.
So perhaps it's just a matter now of getting this suspect out.
Joe, we have a perspective that's showing that the suspect is out and on the ground. That explains the posturing there of the deputies, which, as you mentioned, indeed is much more of a stand down, much more calm situation, under control, not concerned for their own safety. Not sure if they had to pull that person from the back seat. They did, from the back seat. Okay, so you would wonder about the mobility. Was that person able to actually get out of that passenger door, which appears to be locked? They tried to pull it open. Now they're breaking the window to get in there. Not quite sure what information they're trying to find or get, see if there's a weapon or get a driver's license or ID or something on the vehicle themselves. But obviously they want inside that vehicle. Maybe the airbag is blown there, so they couldn't really get to the door, or that person what was in the car couldn't get to the door in some fashion. But Joab, go ahead. From your perspective, what you can see, how would you describe it?
Yeah, you could definitely, now knowing that the suspect is out, they definitely seem to have a different posture about it. And this is probably just more of them getting to the vehicle to take a more look at what's inside. But as for now, things seem to be much more into a different phase of this process now. Just going about getting inside the vehicle, looking at what's inside, collecting evidence, whatnot.
And we were wondering here at the studio, in that wider shot, can you see emergency personnel? Is there an ambulance nearby? Is there a medic nearby? Often you have them stage at a location that puts them at a distance because they can't go into an active crime scene for their own safety. There's your wider shot there. Thank you, Job, for that picture where you see a lot of law enforcement. What, are you seeing any kind of medic or ambulance?
You know, I had the same question. Usually there's somebody on standby. You can see some distance, but I do now hear something moving through. It sounds like a paramedic coming in. I could hear the sirens, so we'll probably have somebody moving in now pretty soon. Perhaps to give some treatment to this victim here.
Right. Well, now that the area has been stabilized and deemed safe for somebody else to come in besides law enforcement with a bulletproof vest, we might see that actual happen there with a paramedic coming in or an ambulance. It looks like a very bad crash into that wall. Our police specialist, Tim Lynn, was saying the looks are a little bit deceiving because a wall like that gives way quite easily, and the front end of that car does bash in, but keeps the cab of the car with a little bit of space and a little bit more intact. So not sure how injured that driver might be. I'm thinking, Joab, though, and you've been on a lot of crime scenes. Okay, the car's pulling out. Maybe you'll get a better view here, and maybe that is to make room for medical personnel. All right, yes, Joab, you got a feel now for the picture, what's going on the ground?
Yes, here now we have appears a paramedic, perhaps. I believe some of these firefighters do have paramedic training as well, so they're probably going to treat this suspect here, and I believe that's a suspect there on the floor. You can see the deputies have huddled around him or her. Perhaps they're going to get some treatment now.
Well, Joab, it's so interesting because we're talking with our specialist, Tim Lynn, who is talking about the SWAT team being on the scene, and there quite quickly, which makes us wonder how much information they have or had on this driver that they were deployed so quickly to be there. You know, we were watching this since 3:20 p.m. So obviously they had a lot of notice and a lot of time. But for this the way it ended there at that wall, to have that SWAT team still kind of in command there, in control of that situation, I'm wondering who the suspect is and what they know about this suspect. Obviously now our view is blocked, but I'm wondering, Joab, could you see any movement at all from the person on the ground? A hand move, a leg move, were they talking? Could you see that at all?
You know, from that brief look we got, I did not see any movement. This individual seemed to be laid on the ground. They had, the deputies were huddled around this individual, and I couldn't tell. It looked like there was some, trying to describe what I saw, it probably looked like some cuts or abrasions. It looked like there was some redness there, so that might give us some insight to the current situation with this suspect here.
All right, well, Joab, we're gonna allow you to stay there on the scene. I'm sure law enforcement there will give us some kind of news conference after what we witnessed with this long standoff. and the use of their new tool, the grappler, and how that worked or did not work when we hear from law enforcement. I'm sure there's a lot of questions about that.